Hello. Hi. My name is Shane Brody. I'm traveling around the country talking to trans people, intersex, gender non-conforming, non-binary, and also parents and some allies. And I'm here in Eastern Washington. I had to think about that for a second because I've been traveling a lot, traveling all over the U.S. And I'm about to go up to Canada for a little bit and then back home to Alaska. Anyway, I'm a trans man, and I've been having such a good time talking to people in the greater trans community and allies and parents. It's really great. I think, it's a tough time that we're having right now, in terms of the government and some laws. But I think that's also an opportunity to create community and to learn about each other. And so that's part of the reason why I'm doing this project. And I'm going to hand it over to my guests today. One of them is going to be pixelated because they're a minor, which is that's my rule, and for their own privacy. And if you could introduce yourselves, I'd love that.
Hello, I am Cage. I'm 16. I use he, him pronouns, and I am a trans boy.
All right.
I'm Becky, and I am Cage's mom, and I have become an LGBTQ ally, and I support that community.
And you said that you've become an ally, and you were mentioning before, as I was setting up, that you are part of LDS, which is the Church of Latter-day Saints,
right.
Which is also known as the Mormons. Can you kind of talk about that a little bit?
Sure.
Yeah.
So, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as Mormons. The doctrine, it's a church that I still believe in, even though my church says that marriage is between a man and a woman, and your gender is the gender that you're born with. When Cage first came out to me, he came out to me as non-binary, and I told him that I accepted him. He wanted to go by they, them pronouns, but inside I was like, okay, how can I fix her? How can I fix her? How can we fix this? And so I had to do a lot of reading, a lot of praying, a lot of soul searching, and I still do that. But I've come to the conclusion now that even though I believe in the church is flawed, has some flaws, and
the church is people too.
Yes,
right?
the church is run by people, and there have been changes throughout the years in, other respects of my church, like blacks being able to hold the priesthood and things like that. And so I feel like my mission on earth now is to help other members of the church open their minds about this issue, trans, gay, lesbian, gender dysphoria. I hate to use that term, but
it's kind of clinical or
right,
pathologizing. Yeah.
Right. So, and I have helped some people to kind of think about it a little bit more. Unfortunately, I've ran into other people who are completely closed-minded and like, no, that's that's not right. That's sinful, and that's okay for them to think that way. I mean, it's not okay that that people think that, but people can think that any way they want. So, but yeah, I'm an advocate of the LGBTQ community. I belong to the Free Moms Hugs group, and and I love it so much. I love giving people hugs, especially those whose parents have rejected them. So. Yeah.
It's, I gotta say, I keep hearing about people in my project here who are part of that, who give other people hugs. And I mean, what a gift to be able to give a hug to somebody who maybe has been rejected by their parents or their community. I mean, it's really beautiful. I was wondering, When did you, like, kind of figure out that you were a trans person? And what was that like? Where did you get the language and about that?
So I don't exactly remember the moment when I figured out that I wasn't cisgender. I believe I was 13 when I was like, oh, maybe I'm not a girl. And it was right before I turned 14, actually. And I just kind of kept that inside of me, being like, oh, I'm not really going to tell anyone. But and then I went to the hospital for depression. And right after that, I came out to my mom. And at that time, I was having.
Do you think the depression was because you were not being open about yourself?
No, it was more about school stuff that was going on at the time. And also at that time, I was really confused about like who I was as a person, or what gender I was really. Yeah.
Okay, so it was somewhat related, and then you went to the hospital for depression. And did somebody there help you work through some of this?
There were actually a lot of other patients there who were part of the LGBTQ community.
Okay, great.
My roommate helped me. They were like, maybe you should come out to your mom, and, they just gave me some advice. I forgot exactly what they said because it was like 2 years ago, but yeah.
Yeah. So how did you take that, Mom?
Well, he kind of, like out of the blue, we were in the backyard doing yard work or something, and he had been talking about, gender identity and LGBTQ. And I'm like, are you a lesbian? And he said, no, I'm non-binary. Like, it was like no big deal. And then he stopped and said, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that out loud. And I just hugged him and said, I love you, I support you. But like I said, inside, I'm like, I need to fix her. What can I do to fix her? And that was the beginning of my journey.
Did you have any sense of panic?
Yes, I did. I was like, there was panic. Like, I need to fix this. I don't know how to fix this. I need to fix this. And I didn't tell Cage's dad because he's very traditional, and so it was just between Cage and I didn't really have anybody to talk to about this, and so I just started doing some reading, and that's
like online.
Online, yeah. And then I found an amazing Facebook group of LDS parents of LGBTQ kids.
Oh, really?
Oh my gosh, that was amazing.
Wow, I'm actually amazed at that. Is there kind of a strain within LDS that is more liberal or more accepting or welcoming?
I'm not sure what you mean by a strain in the LDS church.
Kind of like how, I don't mean officially, but socially within LDS, are there people who are sort of gathering together, like you're saying, on this Facebook group, but I mean more outside of that as well, who are thinking about more liberal issues, more freedom for individual expression, that sort of thing?
Oh, there's a whole group of people, and there are some books that have been written by people. There's I'm trying to think of the name of the one book that helped me, written by Becky McIntosh. She LDS family, lots of kids, like most LDS people have.
Right.
And her son, after he served his mission, came out as gay. And so she talks about that process, her process, and her husband's, of them trying to come to terms. And it was a long process. And I was so glad to read this book because I almost made the same mistakes that she made. Like she sent him talks from, our general authorities on, how to get over, pray the gay away kind of a thing. I mean, they didn't use that term.
Yeah, the LDS church is very, very conservative.
Oh, yes.
Unfortunately, I do know some older gay men who were basically tortured within the Mormon church because of being gay, and there was like aversion therapy and that sort of thing. It's pretty bad.
They used to have conversion therapy, and I had read about that, and horrible the way that I can't even imagine. And the thought of Cage going through that just breaks my heart. So there's a whole group of us that we support each other. Some of the people in the group have left the church, and that's fine. And I've always told Cage that if and we're actually looking at different churches right now for him. Because I want him. I think that having a belief in a higher power is important, especially for Cage, so that you don't feel alone. And so we've been looking at different churches. We actually went to a Buddhist temple a couple of times,
awesome.
which I loved, and so did Cage.
I go to Buddhist spaces.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, love that. But I would rather Cage be somewhere where he feels accepted than to be forced to go somewhere where he's not comfortable, where he doesn't feel, but our congregation and our bishop has been really good about, this transition.
Oh, really?
Yeah. We went to, our bishop and we have the young women's program and young men's program. And I told him that Cage was transitioning to being a man, and can he go to the young men's classes? And he had to get permission from, the next higher up, which is a stake president. And he just called us into his office last week and said, yes, he can come to young men. So, I know.
Wow. That's great.
I know.
And this is like the official church.
Yeah. And so Cage is kind of pioneering in our congregation or in our area. And so it's really cool.
I got to say I love that because you're very shy.
Yeah.
I love that you're so shy and that you're kind of like this pioneer who's doing something rather radical in the church that you grew up in. I mean, this is intense.
Yeah, well, I'm trying to get out of my shell slowly, but
Well, you're young. You're very young.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It takes some life experience sometimes to gain some confidence.
Yeah.
That's great. I'm excited that you're going to be able to go to the boys part. Mm-hmm. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Are you excited about that?
I'm really excited about it.
Yeah. And in general, like when you're at school and in your daily life, are you able to be out as who you are?
Yeah. I go to an alternative school. There's not a lot of people in there, and the teachers are really good, and the students are good about.
Is it like a charter school or a private school?
It's not a private school. I go there half days.
Okay.
I don't know how to explain it.
It's a school in the school district for those who are struggling in a regular high school.
Okay.
And so their structure is a lot different. They have more support and, academically and socially. So, and it's a really small school, but he thrives in that school.
If you could talk about how this is like a good environment for you, I would love to hear about that.
Yeah. So, when I was a freshman, I went to a regular high school for about 2 months, and that wasn't working well for me. And so going to...
Were you getting bullied at all? Or?
I wasn't. It was just the schoolwork was really hard, and I had trouble like asking for help from teachers. There were also 2 gun threats at the school, which
God.
Yeah, it was crazy, and it just wasn't working out for me. And
is that locally here in this
town? And so I went to an alternative school.
Okay.
And that was a lot better for me. The teachers were super nice, and they were willing to help me. Even when I didn't ask for help, they would.
Oh, great.
They would help me, and
it sounds more like proactive. So you got more one-on-one help.
Yeah.
That's great.
But they were a little more laid back on the schoolwork, and so that kind of helped me. It put a lot less stress on me.
Yeah.
And
so you just run at a different pace. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
I do as well.
Yeah. So at my school, they have Wednesdays off, and that's where students can go in for like study hall and like ask the teachers for help.
Sure. So it's a little unstructured on Wednesdays.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's great. Yeah. Wonderful. How about you? What is your relationship to the school?
Oh, I love the school. When Cage struggles with anxiety, and so when they had the gun threats, and then he was taking the bus to school, and the bus got rear-ended once, and I think there was a time there was a fight on a bus, and you know, he just did not want to go to school ever. Yeah. And so I had a conversation with his school counselor, and she's the one that brought up an alternative school, and there are 2 in the area, and I applied for both of them, and the one that he's in was the only one that reached out to me, and they have been amazing. And he has been in the hospital 3 times since then, since you started going to that school, and all 3 times they would call me, okay, what can we do? How can we help Cage? And, you know, back then he went by she, her pronouns, and they were just amazing. And then when he came back after being in the hospital, they, you know, helped him get caught up and just spent that extra time with him. They're very communicative with me. And it's great. I love this school. He really thrives there. I think he's probably going to stay there until graduation. Yes. So, yeah.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. Do they also affirm your gender identity?
Yes.
There? Okay. And in what ways do they do that?
Well, they just respect my gender identity. They use he, him pronouns when they're, you know, talking to me or whatever. And
your the name that you go by as well?
Yes. I started going by Cage ever since I was 14. So before I started high school.
Is your name legally changed, or is this additional?
It has not legally changed. I would like to legally change it when I'm 18.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's wonderful, though, that they're using your name, and it doesn't have to be your legal name.
Yeah.
Because that's quite common for minors and for trans people just in general, that their legal documentation doesn't match. Some of the legal documentation doesn't match, and then also sometimes the legal documentation doesn't match how they are daily, you know, in their daily lives.
Yeah. Well, my name on like the school records or whatever is Cage. So
and his name at church in the church records is Cage. So I
wow.
know, right?
Wow. I gotta say, I'm really impressed with the local. What do they call it around here? The polity. What is that called?
So our congregation is called a ward, and then several wards make up a stake. So we have the bishop is ahead of the ward, and then a stake president is over all of those wards.
Okay.
So,
I gotta say, I'm really impressed. I'm wondering too if there had been like previous activism, or if the people in leadership had any contact or had dealt with this issue before.
So it was about a year ago that one of the counselors in the bishopric, who is actually now our bishop, he contacted me and said that he was going to do an adult lesson on LGBTQ and the doctrine and policies, and so he put together a PowerPoint pretation and sent it to me. And I called him and I'm like, no.
Was it all wrong?
Well, not all of it, but there were some that, marriage is between a man and a woman. And I'm like, if there are LGBTQ people in our ward, they already know that. You don't need to, let's talk about how to love them. Don't reiterate, doctrine and policies that they already know, because that just makes them feel more like an outcast. And so,
and they're not gonna get any help.
Right, exactly.
Going to something like that and then being told once again that you're not welcome is not helpful.
Yeah, exactly. And so we like talked on the phone and texted and emailed for like 2 hours the night before he was giving this presentation. Yeah. And so the next day I saw him at church and he gave me a big hug. He's like, I've learned so much. Thank you so much. And so now I'm glad he's our bishop and he's helping the other leaders in our ward kind of. And as a matter of fact, the next time we have the young men's class, Cage is not going to be there because the bishop wants to talk to them about that instead of like having him come to young men's and they're like, why is this girl in our class? And so he's going to talk to them and in a way to help them accept him.
Well, when you first mentioned that, when you first said that, I sort of cringed a little bit like, oh no, like it's going to be a violation of privacy. You see what I mean? I'm saying, but if you consent to it and it's from a intention of making it easier on your son here, I can see how that's really beneficial. So that's good, because then you don't have to do the work. You don't have to be traumatized by people being like, what is going on here? Yeah, that's wonderful. I'm so glad that he's taking responsibility for that as a religious leader. Yeah. And religious leaders out there, you have some lessons to learn from a rather conservative church. Okay? That's a pretty good lesson. So I'm curious, what do you do at these gatherings? What are you hoping to do?
So
I know nothing about LDS.
Okay, so we go to church every Sunday for 2 hours. The first hour we go to sacrament meeting, where we just...
It's everybody.
Yeah, it's everybody in the congregation. We take the sacrament and, some people give some talks and we sing religious songs. And
that's my favorite part of church.
Yeah. And then after the first hour, we go to our separate classes. Like the young men's will go to their separate class. Young men's will go to their separate class. The adults will go to their separate class. The kids will go to their class. And we just kind of, learn about, people in church history or prophets, or we learn morals,
great. Great. And has it ever come up in, I'm assuming, the women's groups, these issues?
So for a while I was a Relief Society teacher. Now the Relief Society is the women in the church. It's like the largest women's group in the world or something like that.
Is that part of missionary work?
No. It's more service oriented, helping those who are community. Yes, or in the community and in the church. Helping those who usually when someone just has a baby, the Relief Society comes in and brings meals and things like that. So
that sounds wonderful.
I know, it's amazing. So, but I was a teacher.
Thank you, Relief Society. That's a great name for it.
So I was one of the teachers in Relief Society, and I was not shy about sharing my thoughts on the LGBTQ community.
Wow.
I mean, I tried to keep it respectful to the doctrine, but more about how they, we all are born with different identities, and, we're born this way. The people in the LGBTQ community, they're born this way. This is who they are, and we need to, be kind to them and treat them that way. And I even mentioned one time that, gosh, I hope that someday the church allows gay marriage.
Wow.
I think that's probably why I'm not a teacher anymore. I don't know.
Well, I love it that you have like these multiple levels that you're working at. Like you're like very respectful, right? Because you're a member of that church and you're very kind. And then you throw in some kind of radical stuff in there. I love it. And you're so sunny and smiley. And I'm thinking that probably your peers are listening to you. Maybe if they are initially rejecting it, I'm sure that they're thinking about it. Yeah.
I certainly hope so. I hope so. I mean,
Have you gotten any good feedback?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There was, so my mother is deaf, and usually I interpret at church for her, but there was one time that I was teaching, and so we had another interpreter there for her. And afterwards, that interpreter came up and said, "Thank you so much for bringing that up and, bringing light to that." Yeah. So, and she's a member of the church. So, I'm getting some people asking me questions, and like good questions, questions of help me understand this kind of thing. So it's pretty awesome.
Wow, you're like a one woman powerhouse here. I love it.
I got this.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming to my interview. I think it's great. Let's take a break for a second.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we took a little break, and I gave my dog some scratches, and we just kind of chilled out there for a second. And we were thinking that you could talk about your gender identity and how you were exploring that when you were much younger.
Yeah. So, I didn't actually know about that kind of stuff, like trans or gay. I didn't know that could be a thing when I was younger. Because I grew up in a religious household, and I didn't know.
And it sounds like
that.
LDS talks about it in kind of a negative way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I just didn't know that that could be a thing.
Okay.
But when I was little, I've always wished that I was a boy. One time or a few times, I was like, maybe. Like before I was born, when I was in heaven, I was a boy. And it's stuff like that.
Yeah. I used to pray sometimes when I was little and I've heard other people say that they were praying when they were younger, that they would just wake up and then, I'm a boy or I'm a girl, as I'm supposed to be, or Yeah,
I think I was 12 when I started to figure it out. And it was just like this whole thing for me. I was like, oh, that's kind of weird, but okay. At first I thought it was kind of weird, but
okay. Yeah,
but then when I was 13, almost 14, I was like, maybe it's not so weird after all.
Yeah. Sometimes it's pretty common to, like, if you're interested in something, there's some resistance to it, especially if it's very different. It's like, oh, I don't want to, be different, or, I don't want to, hurt people's feelings or their expectations of me. That can be difficult.
Yeah.
Did you ever encounter that where people were maybe confused or hurt, or they just didn't know what you were talking about?
Not really. Not that I can remember. Yeah.
Did you just kind of keep it to yourself?
Yeah, I just sort of kept it to myself.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, it sounded like you were pretty private. When did you finally come out to your mom, by the way? How old were you?
I was 14 when I came out.
Yeah. And what kind of, I guess, how did you reach that point where you were like, I just have to tell her now?
So, I didn't actually plan to tell her. It just
Okay.
kind of slipped out, and I was like, "Hold on, what did I just say?"
Oh no! Oh, that was when you said you were non-binary, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it kind of slipped out that you were non-binary, and then how were you able to talk about it after that?
I don't.
Because it was kind of accidental.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I didn't really talk about it a little bit after that. Because, right after that, my mom was like, "Okay, until you're 18, I'm not gonna use your pronouns, okay?" But obviously, she was very close-minded at that time, and I've been patient with her.
Well, that's good. Kids should be patient with their parents, as parents should also be patient with their kids, right?
Yeah.
It's a relationship.
Right.
Yeah, I'm patient with her because she is patient with me.
Yeah,
Because I've gone through like 2 years of trying to figure out my gender identity, and I've been going by different pronouns throughout the years. And then finally I was just like, you know what? I'm a boy, and ever since I've been, living as a boy, which is about a month or two ago, I've been a lot happier.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
And it shows. I mean, when I talk to people about Cage and his gender, I say I would much rather have a happy Cage than a dead, his old name.
Okay.
And because my biggest fear back then was that I would find Cage dead in his room because he was so depressed.
Yeah, you were mentioning that there were several hospitalizations.
Yes,
and-
yeah. And it's only just the last couple of months since he's come out, and has identified as a boy. He is happy all the time, all the time. I mean, he has his moments where he gets angry, but his
well, he's a teenager.
right, yeah.
That is absolutely normal. And all the exploration and all that stuff is it's totally normal.
Right, yeah. But his general mood is happy. He is happy who he is. And I'm glad that he came out as non-binary first because I was so closed-minded. If he would have come out as trans at the very beginning, it would have been just like, no.
Why is that?
Non-binary just was easier for me to accept than...
Is that because trans would mean physical changes, whereas non-binary doesn't necessarily mean that?
Yeah,
Okay.
Non-binary is easier for me to accept because, there's no physical changes. Okay, they go by they, them pronouns, which I refuse to use until I'm like, when you're 18, I will do they, them pronouns.
What changed your mind on that?
Just all of my research that
Okay.
I've been reading books and listening to books.
Yeah. Yeah, because you're very busy.
Yeah. But I listen to books. But a lot of it was just a lot of prayer. Like I communicated with God, and I believe in personal revelation, and I read a lot of, scriptures, but it was a very spiritual change for me. It was. So I was able to go through that, and then I had realized that he felt like he was actually a boy, and I kind of fought that a little bit, like, well, you didn't really act like a boy when you were growing up, and I not with him, but just kind of with myself.
But he was also not telling you about himself.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
So now he gets to be very open with you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And ever since he came out as non-binary, we've gotten really close.
Yeah.
We're just like, we're so tight right now.
Yeah.
Well, I can tell.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So when I first, when I was 12 and 13, I would go through stuff being like, I hate my mom. Why is she so mean all the time? Because, I was...
Well, yeah, a lot of 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds do that.
Yeah, but...
I hate you.
But when I was younger, I was really close with her, and then I just kind of drifted apart from her as I, started becoming a teenager. And then when I was 14, when I came out to her, I was super scared. I didn't actually want to come out to her at all.
Yeah. But it kind of happened accidentally.
Yeah, I was...
Well, that's kind of a blessing that it happened, though, yeah?
Yeah, and over time, we just got closer, and I'm really glad that happened, because we have a great relationship now.
Yeah. So when he came out as non-binary and I started doing research, one of the things that I learned is the world is not binary. Like I went back to like the creation of the world and how God created day and night. Well, he didn't just create day and night. There's dusk and there's dawn and there's like this whole, and so I started researching, well, he created land.
And those are often people's favorite times of day.
Yeah.
Are the sunset and the sunrise.
That's right. And my favorite is sunset.
Yeah.
So, he created land animals and sea animals and birds. Well, if you look at a penguin is a bird that doesn't fly and swims in the water, or there's tadpoles and frogs, Yeah. And so it just like God created just a rainbow, and I love the term rainbow, a rainbow of not just binary, day, night, land, water. And these are things that I discovered right after he came out to me. And so I would share these things with him and look at what I've learned and look at some of the things that I've been thinking about. And I think that's what helped us become a lot closer.
Well, and it sounds too like it kind of deepened your faith.
Absolutely it did. And in the LDS church we we have this belief of that we have prophets and we have what we call the gospel. That's the core part of our church. Through this process, I've learned to separate the gospel from the church. Like the gospel is perfect. The gospel is about Heavenly Father and Jesus Christ and the Holy Ghost and everything that they've done for us. And then there's the church that's run by men. And so I've separated those two. And that's
why I made that distinction earlier about the church being people. Because people are fallible.
Yes, that is true. That is true. So so that's where that him coming out to me like that and me doing that research was really so helpful in my growth. And I call it a growth, it's like, this is my journey. And when I see other people that are closed-minded, I'm like, okay, they're just not as far along on their journey, and that
sounds like you're helping them somewhat.
I'm hoping to anyway. So
it's not like in a paternalistic or controlling kind of way.
No.
You're just offering what you've learned.
Right. Exactly.
Your revelation.
Yes. My personal revelation. Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'm wondering what that did for you. Like your mother was just talking about sort of a personal revelation. Did you feel that? Did you feel closer to spirituality?
Yeah, a little bit. I'm not as of a spiritual person as my mom is, obviously, but I do. I did feel.
That must be hard to say.
Yeah,
I know.
Yeah, but
I'm not either. I'm more in Buddhism and that sort of thing. Yeah.
The one thing I like about my religion is Jesus, because he loved everyone. It didn't matter who they were or what their past was. He just loved everyone.
In fact, that was like his whole thing. I mean, he hung
Yeah.
out with the sinners, and he called people who were pointing fingers the hypocrites, you know? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love how you talked about your revelation because, like, I think that sometimes people narrow what God is, and I think that's a sin.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. And you were talking about Jesus and how he loved everyone, and it was the Pharisees that were like, you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be doing that. And that reminds me of the leaders of my church. They're like, sometimes they act like the Pharisees, like, oh, no. This is the law. This is what we should be doing. And so, but yeah, with my personal revelation that I have with God and with, I have a strong belief in Jesus Christ. I know that Cage is not as spiritual as I am, that my spirituality came, after years of, praying, and Cage has his own journey spiritually or non-spiritually, whatever. I like I said, I just want him to believe in some kind of higher power so that he knows that he's not alone.
Yeah.
So.
That's really sweet that you are allowing him to also explore that. Yeah, I know that can be hard.
Well, yeah, because in the church, we believe in eternal families, that we're a family forever. And I still believe that. I still believe that he is part of my eternal family, regardless of the path that the religious or spiritual, spiritual path that he takes. I still believe that he's still part of my eternal family now. I mean, I didn't, I was worried before, but now I still believe we're family forever. So,
wow, that's really great. I've never heard of that, the spiritual family. I have seen some old LDS films, so now those make a little bit more sense to me. It was kind of like a family, kind of in heaven and together and that sort of thing. Yeah. So how are you exploring spirituality?
I don't really, practice my religion as much as I should. But
I don't like the word should.
well,
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, it's a weird word.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, you two were talking about earlier how you were going to different places. Yeah.
Yeah. There is a Christian church that is right next to my school.
Okay.
We haven't been there yet, but we heard that there are a few gay and trans people there, right?
Okay. So people would call that a welcoming or affirming church.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry. When we just had our first Pride Festival that we went to, our first Pride Festival last week. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Was that for the city?
Yes,
Okay.
the city of Spokane. I was able to man the free mom hugs booth with a couple of other ladies there. It was awesome. It was amazing. And one of the ladies, we exchanged information, and she sent me an email recently introducing me to a pastor of a Christian church that's actually really close by. And she's like, this is an affirming church, this is her name. And so she and I have been talking, and we're going to meet next week, and so I could ask her some questions about the church and something that I hadn't told Cage, but I'm really excited. I'm really excited to meet.
So once again, you're being very proactive.
Yes.
Which is great, which is a good protection for your son here.
Oh,
that you're doing that.
Absolutely. Yeah. This is something that I was going to say at the Pride Festival, they had a parade first, and I actually took a picture of Cage, of his face. He smiled, beamed the whole time we were watching these floats and different things going by. And I was sitting there looking at all of these people in the parade, and I actually started to get teary-eyed, which is something I do anyway, because I was looking at these people who had to spend a long time hiding who they were. And now we're here celebrating
Right.
who they are. And it was just such a beautiful spiritual moment that I had right there. Like, we are celebrating you, and I'm sorry that you had to hide who you were. And so it was an amazing event. You know, it was our first Pride event. We hadn't been able to go the last couple of years, and
Right, because of COVID.
right. Well, COVID, and then there was one time where he was in the hospital during the Pride, and then COVID. But it was an amazing experience for both of us, but probably for different reasons. But it was it was awesome.
And how was it? How was it for you?
It was amazing. My favorite part was definitely the parade. Because there were drag queens there, and they looked super cool.
Okay.
And
that's interesting too, because you're even though you're you were non-binary and now you're trans, you don't seem like somebody who would dress up, maybe because you're a little bit shyer, but you appreciate drag queens. What do you like about them?
I guess I just think they look super cool. I guess I love how they wear different outfits that just look super cool, and they
put a lot of work into it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I've known a lot of drag queens who were poorer. Right, they work at retail jobs or something like that, and so they don't have a lot of money, but they are very creative, and they take old outfits and they sort of reconstruct them, or they design things, and then they find some interesting fabric and make beautiful things. They're always just so creative.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that the Pride Parade was your favorite part. What other, for people who aren't familiar with a Pride event, what other things are going on during a Pride event?
So there were different stands that
tables and stuff?
Yeah, they're like different companies that supported the LGBTQ plus community. And
so they're advertising for employees, basically.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there were also some activities you could do. There was karaoke there as well.
Great. Did you do that?
I did not. Nope.
That's hilarious.
that makes me sad because he is such a great singer.
Oh,
he really is.
Oh, yes. Okay.
No, but
well, your mom says you are.
well, they also were selling some stuff. There was this one booth that had a whole bunch of 3D printed dragons.
Oh.
And they looked super cool. I bought 2 of them.
Oh, wow.
And they just looked super cool.
Sure. All right.
Yeah, and
there's all kinds of craftspeople who also come there too. Yeah. Totally.
Yeah, they also had they had food there. I had some cotton candy, which was pretty good. I think it was pineapple flavored.
Okay. Wow, I think it's been at least 20 years since I've had cotton candy.
Yeah, and they also had some shows there, like there was like a drag show there, and just different people showing off their talents, I guess. There's this one person who was singing a song by Queen dressed as Freddie Mercury, I thought that was really cool.
All right.
Yeah.
And who doesn't love Freddie Mercury?
Right?
I don't know anybody that doesn't love Freddie Mercury. I'm talking about an out gay man,
Yeah.
Yeah, totally. Mm-hmm. Yeah, cool. Yeah. So did you find any booths that had some good information that you could use?
I didn't really go to those booths because they had long lines.
Okay.
But yeah,
I did. I found some booths. So we kind of separated a little bit because he found some friends, and I'm like, I just want to. He wanted to do this, and I'm like, I want to look at these booths. So sorry, and But there were some places where I bought I bought a book and I gave it to you on it was a self-help book for trans teenagers.
Great. Wonderful.
And then anytime that they had like little pins to, like he, him, or she, her, I picked up a bunch of he, him ones. And then I picked up a she, her one for me, even though I'm not, LGBTQ.
I need an extra one, by the way. Do you have an extra one?
Yes, we do. We have, you have one. So,
I want to wear one at work.
Oh, yeah. But I got to man the Free Mom Hugs booth. And there was one experience I had where, and every time I hugged somebody, I would say the same thing: "You are important. You are valid." And so this one girl, I think she's probably about Cage's age, 16, maybe 17. Can I give you a hug? And she gave me a hug, and I told her those things: "You are important. You are valid." And she started to cry and just hung on to me for like probably a good minute. Didn't say anything, just cried and cried and cried, and I just held her, and then she turned around and left. We didn't even talk, but she just turned around and left. And there were different moments like that where they were like, "Oh, thank you so much for saying that to me." That really helped me to just form a deep love for these people, especially the ones whose parents rejected them, because I just can't imagine being rejected by my mother, and I can't imagine rejecting any of my children.
And you're such a close family. Your mom lives here.
Yes, my mom lives here, and so it's just, I have such a deep love for them now, especially after that experience. So.
Yeah.
Wow, that's so great that you were spreading that mom love. Yeah.
Yeah, and it made me realize how lucky I am to have, such a supporting family. A few weeks ago, I came out to my sister over the phone, and she had the best reaction I've ever heard from anyone. She started crying. She was like, "I'm so glad you came out to me."
Yeah.
And
yeah, because it implies like trust and love that you're able to do that, right?
Yeah.
Where does she live outside of Spokane?
No, she lives in Spokane, kind of farther away, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
So Cage has several older siblings.
Okay.
Several, and every single one of them has
Good LDS.
Yeah. Every single one of them has accepted him as a trans male. So they've all been so supportive.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So I was wondering, where are you at now, and I guess where are you going with your transition? Are you socially transitioning, or are you also going to medically transition?
So, as of right now, I am socially transitioning. I'm going to be going on hormone blockers.
Okay.
Which, will stop me from developing even more as a girl. And then when I'm 18, I'm going to start, doing a hormone therapy, and I haven't really researched it a whole bunch, but I'm planning to fully transition into a man.
Okay. And what kind of medical care are you getting around that?
I don't know.
So do you want me to answer?
Yeah.
He had a really good pediatrician that recently moved, and then his pediatrician recommended a different pediatrician it's kind of a drive, but she's within the insurance, and she specializes in gender affirming, children. And so we just started to see her, but we have an appointment in 2 weeks for him to get the hormone blocker. And then, when he's 18, he'll start on the hormone hormone replacement therapy, HRT. And then after that, I will support him, whatever he wants done with his body, I'm there for him. So, yeah.
The reason why I ask about physical transition is I know that sometimes in a place like this that is outside of a large urban area, like I would say Spokane is a small urban area, it's sometimes difficult to get medical care, and also to find culturally competent or medical providers that know about these issues. Because some medical providers, I don't know why, they keep themselves in ignorance or they don't want to do extra training. So I'm so glad that you found somebody who has gotten extra training, who's gone the extra step to be more competent.
Yeah.
How does that feel to you?
It makes me feel really good that it also makes me feel like happy that I live in this time where the world is a little more accepting of trans people.
Yeah, unfortunately, too, this is also a difficult time because we're seeing state legislatures passing some bad or proposing bills that would take away care, that would take away your ability to take hormone blockers if that's what you and your family and your doctors decide.
Yeah, that's also the thing that scares me as well. But I think Washington is a good place to be if you're trans. I'm extremely lucky to not live in one of those southern states that...
Or even Idaho, which is right next door. It's like half an hour, 45-minute drive away. It's not just the South. It's Midwest as well. Yeah. What do you think about that, Mom? It looks like you want to say something.
Well, I'm just thinking, that's something that I hadn't really thought of. I mean, I've been kind of looking in the news, but of course I'm just a busy person. But I'm sitting here thinking that I would like to get more involved in, and I've met some politicians at the Pride Parade, at the Pride Festival.
I was going to ask that too, if there were any politicians who spoke.
No, I didn't see any that spoke, but I did talk to one, and I wish I could remember her name. She and I had a long conversation, and this was a woman whose father was gay. And
she's a local politician that you know.
She's a local politician, and I wish I could remember her name. I have it written down. But now that listening to you, talk about how, they're trying to pass laws that will make it harder for people like Cage, I think I need to put myself out there a little bit more, for sure. I
got to say, I just love you. You're like, okay, I see a problem. I'm going for it.
I just want to fix it. I would never.
And earlier, you talked when we were off camera. You were like, I was so shy when I was younger.
Oh, I was. Oh my gosh. Do you want to talk about that? Okay. So, like in the 6th grade, I got an award for being the shyest person in the school, and this was in Utah.
And Cage is like laughing so hard.
And I just kind of, after I was still shy, I still consider myself shy, but I'm just
I
pretending.
I'm also a bit shy, but then people are like, why are you making this series? Well, you see a problem and you try to address it.
That's right. But I would see people that are not shy, and they and I'm like, gosh, I wish I were like that, like those people. And then I just got to the point to where I'm just going to try. I'm just going to fake it. And I still feel like I'm faking it, but it's a little bit easier for me. But I am pretty out there, I will see someone in public that has, beautiful shoes or whatever. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I love your shoes, And I just know how that makes me feel when people, compliment me, just some random stranger. And it's like, I just want to spread the love, so.
Yeah. Speaking of like medical care and that sort of thing, what pops into your mind that you would do as an advocate? What do you think?
Well, I just want to make sure that there are no laws passed that would make it difficult for people like Cage. People who, these are people, this is a person with feelings, and they know who they are. And even if they don't know who they are and they're struggling, they deserve to have the medical treatment that will help them to be authentic.
And part of that treatment too could also be therapy to figure that out.
Absolutely. That is so important. Cage looks at, the news when it comes to all the time. And I think recently you were telling me about a place where there's like some kind of a law where if a teacher overhears, tell me about that.
Okay, so I forgot what state it was, but basically it was a law that if a teacher at a school overheard a student saying that they're trans or non-binary or gay or whatever, that they were obligated to tell the parent, to out them out to their parent, which...
Yeah, I think there's a lot of bills that are pushing for that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's a bad idea?
Because, obviously if they're not comfortable telling their parents, that means that their parents probably shouldn't know that stuff because, and if the parent knows that stuff and, the kid is not ready to tell them and they know that stuff, that's just going to cause a whole lot of problems for the kid.
Right, yeah. And people have the right to take their own time to do things.
Exactly,
right?
yes.
I mean, you came out kind of accidentally,
Yeah.
but, luckily your mom, you have a close relationship. But yeah, a lot of kids don't. Like, for instance, I grew up in a household that was unsafe. Yeah. Totally, yeah.
Yeah, I just think that's horrible that someone should come out to their parents when they are ready.
Right.
They should be the one to choose when their parents find out. And it's none of a teacher's business. It's not unless the child makes it their business.
Right, and sometimes teachers can be a wonderful support for students. Definitely, I mean, I certainly love a lot of my teachers from grade school and that sort of thing. But yeah, when we're trying to force teachers to basically tattle on the children that they're teaching, that's a little weird.
Yeah,
that's pretty weird.
Yeah, and it's not helping anyone at all.
Yeah, what's that supposed to address? I mean, it sounds like punitive. It sounds like punishment.
Yeah, it's basically, telling kids, you guys aren't safe at home or school when it comes to your sexuality or your identity.
Yeah. Yeah, how awful.
That is horrible. I just think that, if I were a teacher and I support LGBTQ, I'd be like, la, 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 I don't hear anything.
What was that? Was that a bird? I didn't hear that.
So let's take a break for a second.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, so we took a little break again, and I noticed you wrote something on the whiteboard over there. What was that?
Shaving cream.
Okay.
It's our shopping list.
All right, awesome. I got to say, that's one of the pleasures of my having like a beard and that sort of thing is sometimes shaving down with a razor, like one of the old school ones too, where you put a blade in and you screw it down, like, something that my dad had when I was growing up. And trying the different kinds of products and that sort of thing. Obviously, right now I'm a little bit scruffy, but that's okay. I'm on a road trip. Anyway, so I thought we would, kind of end with kind of a message that each of you have for other people. What do you think?
Well, my message would be probably to parents, especially Christian parents or religious parents of children who may be LGBTQ, whether you know it or not. Before Cage came out, I thought I was I thought I was supportive of LGBTQ. I'm like, oh yeah, if any of my kids came out, absolutely, I would be fine with it. And then when he came out, I realized I didn't realize I was homophobic until then, because I did not want him to be, who he was. But if
Thank you for admitting that, by the way.
oh
And I think it's really important to admit our frailty
right,
and when we're wrong.
I know at the Pride Parade at the Pride Festival, I was like, I'm sorry I'm late, I just had a lot to learn, So, but to educate yourselves and to get with other parents who have LGBTQ kids, and that was one of the things that helped me as well. And instead of praying that your child is not LGBTQ, pray that you can open your heart and your mind for them. That would be my message. And also, for the voters, really research the people that you're voting for, and if they are going to harm my child or if they're going to help my child. Please look at those that will help my child. And so that's all I have to say.
And it sounds like you're going to get right in there and talk to some of them too. I love that. How about you, Cage?
So to those LGBTQ teens out there, I just want to say that you guys should also have an open mind about the people who you're coming in contact to, because not everyone is as educated as you might want them to be, or as educated as
So have a little patience.
Yeah, just have patience. And not everyone is going to be accepting. And also take your time on figuring out who you are, because you have all the time in the world. There's no deadline to where you have to figure yourself out.
Yeah. Awesome. I think that's sweet.
Him so much.
I think that's a really great place to end. Thank you so much for meeting with me today. It's so lovely to me too that you are Christians and you are so involved with your church and your communities, and you're reaching out to the LGBT community too, and to other people who have some trauma and who need a mom's love, and need more community, because that's really what it's about, is community and family and being who you are. Right. It's lovely. You're just jumping right in. I love it. It. Thank you so much. I love it that you're shopping for shaving cream. Yeah. And thank you, Mom. Yeah. All right, y'all. I have a couple of days here, and I'm going to be doing a lot of gig working because gas is super expensive right now. Oh my goodness, it's like $5 here.
Yeah,
Woo!
it's expensive.
It is really expensive. But I'm going to Canada where it's even more expensive. But I have a job, and I'm going to the job, and along the way I'm going to be doing a bunch of interviews, so I'm excited about that, to talk to Canadians, because I have no idea what's going on in Canada, around LGBT stuff. I always have this idea that they're a little bit more civilized than we are down here in the U.S. But who knows? Who knows what's going on? I'll be glad to know.
Well, I want to say that I appreciate the work that you do. Thank you for doing this and for spreading the awareness. And so thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm trying. This is my little thing that I can do, so I'm doing it. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot, folks. All right.
Bye.